No neighbors, no noise. Just me, 3 acres of desert, and a house that finally felt like mine. Out here, the only rules I followed were my own. Or so I thought. The first sign of trouble came as a plastic sleeve zip-tied to my mailbox. Inside, a notice of intent to fine with the stamp of the Silver Canyon Estates HOA. Apparently, my unauthorized structure violated community design guidelines. I stared at the letter until I laughed out loud. Unauthorized structure? They were talking about the barn I'd built with my own 2 hands on property I bought outright. And the punchline? I wasn't even part of their HOA. Never had been. I tore the letter in half and tossed it in the burn barrel. Flames curled the paper until it was nothing but ash. That should have been the end. But Silver Canyon wasn't looking for an ending. They were looking for a fight. 2 days later, a man in a pressed white shirt and mirrored sunglasses showed up at my gate, introduced himself as Gary Lowe, vice president of the HOA board. He held a clipboard like it was a badge. "We've had reports of code violations on your property," he said, glancing at my barn like it was a crime scene. I leaned against the fence. "Funny thing, Gary, I checked the maps before I ever moved out here. My land's outside Silver Canyon's reach. You've got no authority here." He smiled, thin and practiced. "Boundaries were adjusted last spring. You'll be getting updated notices." That word, adjusted, stuck with me. Adjusted by who? Adjusted for what? That night, I pulled up county records. Just like I thought, no changes, no annexations, no updates. My property line was where it had always been. So why was the HOA suddenly acting like they owned me? The next morning, I woke to the sound of engines. 2 men in reflective vests stood at the end of my drive with a surveying tripod. One was peering through the lens. The other hammered a stake into the dirt like he was claiming the land for Silver Canyon. I walked out slow, coffee in hand. "Morning, boys." "You lost?" One of them didn't even look up. "Boundary assessment. Standard procedure." "Funny," I said, sipping my coffee. "Standard procedure usually requires the owner's consent. And last I checked, I'm the owner." They packed up quick when I pulled my phone out to film them. Too quick. Like they knew they shouldn't have been there in the first place. By the end of the week, I started noticing cars idling too long at the edge of my property. Same SUV, same plates, over and over. And then came the drone, black, quiet, hovering over my roof like a vulture waiting for something to die. I didn't waste time arguing with it. One squeeze of the trigger and the thing scattered into plastic confetti over the dirt. A sheriff's deputy showed up the next morning, complaint in hand. HOA claimed I'd destroyed association property. I showed him the footage from my cameras, drone dipping low, hovering by my windows. The deputy shook his head. "I'd have shot it too." That's when I called in help, Carla Jimenez, a lawyer who'd made her name chewing up HOA boards for breakfast. She didn't mince words. "They're fishing. If they can bully you into compliance, they'll claim jurisdiction retroactively. Keep every scrap of paper." 2 nights later, I found an envelope taped to my truck windshield. No letterhead, no signature. Just one line scribbled in black marker. "They're rewriting maps. Don't let them pin you." I didn't know who left it, but I knew one thing. Silver Canyon was playing dirtier than I thought. Sure enough, Carla dug up evidence a week later. Someone inside municipal zoning had quietly filed a boundary adjustment that would rope my property into the HOA's map. No hearings. No notices. Just a couple of signatures slid across a desk after hours. When I confronted Gary the next time he came sniffing around, he didn't even deny it. He smirked. "You can fight it if you want, but by the time the lawyers are done, you'll wish you'd just painted that barn beige." That was the moment I realized they weren't just after control. They wanted me gone. Flyers started showing up in town with my face on them. Dangerous property owner. Non-compliant. Aggressive. Neighbors who used to wave now crossed the street. Online forums lit up with talk about me running an armed compound. It wasn't just harassment anymore. It was character assassination, a setup. The breaking point came on a blistering Saturday afternoon. I was fixing a loose shingle when I heard the grind of my gate chain. 5 of them walked in like they owned the place, Gary leading the pack, 2 men in matching code enforcement polos, a lawyer I recognized from town, and a rent-a-cop with a sidearm. "We're here for a compliance inspection," Gary announced. "You were notified." "You're trespassing," I said flat. They started measuring my porch, photographing my barn, scribbling notes like they were already writing the fine. The security guy hovered near the lawyer, hand resting on his belt. I gave them one last warning. "You've got 60 seconds to get off my land." Gary smirked. "Or what?" "You'll shoot us." I walked back inside, opened my safe, and came out with the 12 gauge I've had since I was 20. I didn't aim at anyone, just racked a shell and fired skyward. The blast rolled across the desert like thunder. Birds scattered. Dust lifted. The tape measure guy hit the dirt like we were under artillery fire. The rest turned pale and backed out fast, tripping over their own polished shoes. Gary's face was red, his lawyer fumbling for a phone, the security guard barking into his radio. "This inspection is over," I said. "They cleared out in a hurry, but I knew it wasn't done. Not with men like that. Not with snakes in suits who'd already rewritten the map to steal what wasn't theirs." Sure enough, the sheriffs rolled up 15 minutes later. Same young deputy, plus an older one who looked like he'd seen every HOA stunt in the book. I showed them the footage, every second of the trespass, the bogus inspection, the flyer campaign, the forged boundary line. They nodded, slow and heavy. "They're trying to box you in," the older deputy said. "Once these boards smell blood, they don't quit."